Why do some D&D worlds feel like theme parks, static until the player characters get on the ride, while others feel more like dynamic, breathing ecosystems that you've simply been just dropped into? A world that waits for the players is not really a sandbox, it's more of a staged set. One of the core joys of running a sandbox game is seeing how the players have real, irreversible impact on the world around them. There's no forced plot, just some hooks and unfolding action at the gaming table. So, if we want to build or simulate that dynamic ecosystem rather than the stage setting, how do we go ahead and do that? Well, I think that there are four pillars or elements that we can focus on that are really going to help give us that effect in our own games. And those four elements are events, factions, timers, and secrets. These are the tools you have as a game master to ensure that your world is always in motion, whether the party is driving the action forward or not. Hi, welcome back aboard the Earthmote. I'm Randall. So let's go ahead and discuss each of these four different pillars and then see how they can work and tie together. The first pillar is events, and events are the first one because they kind of act as catalysts. An event is really sort of a specific pre-planned occurrence by you, the game master, that is going to happen regardless of player character action. And it's there to change the status quo. That could be the geographical or political or economic landscape of your campaign world. Now, the philosophical role here, as I said, the events are catalysts. So these are starting points that really force the players to respond to the new reality rather than just sort of giving them a list of quests to choose from. So examples of these catalyst events would be, a dam breaks, flooding the valley, a major trade treaty falls through, causing tension between neighboring states, or the Sapphire King unexpectedly dies, kicking off a succession crisis. Now, the important thing about these events here is these are really sort of before and after moments. You, as the game master, can really focus your prep on the environmental or political changes that these events are causing on your campaign world. Now, you might be wondering, well, shouldn't the party be able to react to these events? Shouldn't they be able to prevent them? Agency is a key tenet of sandbox play after all. And in this case, I would say yes and no. I'm talking specifically about catalyst events. That means these are the things that are really kind of getting the action started and rolling forward. They're there for you, the game master, to change the current state of the game world. And generally, those are going to be hard for the party to prevent because they're likely to have no way of knowing that they're coming, right? They can't possibly know that the Sapphire King is going to die. So therefore, it's unlikely that they could prevent it. Unless, of course, it's some sort of assassination attempt or something like that. But dying of natural causes, they probably don't have a way to prevent that. Now, what the party can do is choose to take interest in the events that unfold after your catalyst event. And through that, they can take actions to mitigate what has been done, maybe possibly reverse it, or, of course, affect or alter it in some manner. So these are really there to sort of present some sort of new or big change into your campaign world that's going to kind of direct or have some impact on the course of play going forward. The second pillar is factions. Factions are your actors in your sandbox. These are groups, could be political, military, religious, criminal, what have you. These are groups of people that have defined goals, resources, and methods to go about achieving their goals. Now, we've talked a lot about factions on this channel before. I'll link some of those past faction videos up here and down in the description if you'd like to take a look at them. But really, the role of a faction is to act as an agent of change within your campaign world. Factions can drive events. Without factions, your world feels a bit more passive, and with them, the world is full of overlapping agendas and conflicts. Now, when it comes to preparing your factions, I really think friction and conflict is key. A faction should have something it wants. Maybe it wants to control a mine or find some old ancient ritual book. And it helps to have the faction have something that it fears. Could be a rival gaining too much influence or finding that ritual book ahead of them. And I think the best factions in your sandboxes are interwoven and they have naturally conflicting goals with other factions. And these will inevitably create events in your sandbox that will lead to the timers that we're going to discuss next. And of course, those wants and fears we just talked about, those can be directly related to the secrets, the fourth pillar that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Third, we have timers. Timers are the urgency in your sandbox campaign. Timers are measurable, they can be visible or hidden, but they are deadlines that signal when a faction's plan will be executed or when your next event will occur. The timer is really your consequence engine. It's your game master's promise that the world is not going to wait for the players. If the party ignores the faction's plot, then the plot is simply going to succeed. Now, of course, other factions could conflict with them and that could slow them down. You could build that into your system as well. But ultimately, plans are going to succeed if the party does nothing about them. Now, the events that come from timers are the types of events that the party can and should disrupt if they don't agree with what will happen. Now, unless it's sort of a hidden timer with one of your catalyst events that we talked about in pillar number one, now they're probably going to learn about these events tied to these timers and have some way to interact with them. For the practical implementation of these timers, I think there are a couple different ones that you can use, and I call them slow burn timers or specific timers. Now, slow burn timers, these are things that are going to move forward, but they do have some time vagueness to their timeline. And what I mean by that is you're not exactly sure when the resulting event is going to happen. A couple of examples of this would maybe be the encroaching winter is coming, and that's going to bring the Yeti men down into the valley. Well, we know winter's coming, so that's going to happen, but maybe they need to wait until an ice bridge forms or so much snow covers the land. And when is that going to happen? We don't exactly know because weather is unpredictable. So in this case, you could maybe tie it to a random dice roll rather than knowing a specific point in time on when the Yeti men will come back to the valley. Another example would maybe be the slow corruption of a king's advisor. Again, if it's some sort of poisonous or magical corruption, maybe that takes time. We don't know exactly how long because maybe it's tied to the advisor's willpower. Those are kind of vague time events, but once they expire, the next event's going to happen. Now, specific timers are the exact opposite. You know when they're going to happen. So, for example, the full moon is going to happen in 3 days, and then the cult is going to perform their ritual. That is a very specific timer because you know when the next full moon is going to happen. Or maybe the caravan is going to arrive on the trade road in 5 days. Now, of course, maybe they could be delayed, but you as the game master can just decide it's going to take them 5 days to get to the town. So that is the event trigger. As a game master, if you want to use timers, you need to track in-game passage of time. Cue the infamous Gary Gygax quote from the first edition of the Dungeon Master's Guide. Having a calendar of events and tracking how time moves in your game is going to let the timers really come into play and have those future events unfold that the party can interact with. The last pillar is secrets, and these really add depth to your campaign world. Secrets are unrevealed truths about the world. They're the history or the faction's true motivations. These are really your why of the events that are happening in your game world. Secrets kind of serve as a reward to the party for engaging with the sandbox. They connect disparate pieces of information and reveal the bigger picture to them. So a secret should answer kind of a major why. Why is the king paranoid or acting strange? Well, the secret could be maybe he's been communicating with a celestial being who's slowly been driving him mad. So these secrets, I think, shouldn't be locked behind a single die roll or skill roll if you're using those, or even a single location that contains that piece of information. You could do that, but I wouldn't recommend it because that's likely going to stay uncovered by your party. I would rather use something like the 3 clue rule, maybe providing 3 different ways for the party to discover that same critical piece of information. But really, I just like to weave my sandbox with different opportunities for the party to pick up on the secrets and how they pertain to really the other pillars of the game. And you don't have to give them the full secret at once. You could give them a little piece of information about it, and then they can find another piece somewhere else. And then they sort of start to really piece together that secret and then uncover the truth. So secrets really kind of provide the hooks that help pull your party from these safe havens of your world out into the dangerous unknown hex crawls and dungeons that populate it. So what's nice about these 4 pillars is that they act as your sandbox world engine. They can really help create a continuous loop that is sort of powered by these 4 pillars. So here's just a simple example of that loop and how you can use these different pillars together to really create adventure and dynamic scenarios for your party to engage with. Let's say you have a faction, a shadow cult, that has a secret. They need this bloodstone amulet to summon their shadow master to the campaign world. In that case, they have a timer associated with that. The amulet must be secured and found before the annual comet passes. Otherwise, they're going to have to wait a whole another year. So this urgency for the cult creates new events. Maybe the cult kidnaps an elder who knows the amulet's location. Now, that's an event that the party couldn't react to, but it's a catalyst event. Once they hear that catalyst event, the party can get involved and maybe uncover the secret that the cult is having and potentially disrupt that timer, stopping the faction from releasing the Shadow Master into the world. Now, in a sandbox, of course, your party isn't on rails. They could choose to ignore the shadow cult and go on their own way, doing whatever they were doing before, or just doing something else. That's fine. In that case, you just simply carry out the plans of the cult in due time, probably with success, unless there is some other faction in your background that has a way to stop them. If they don't, now there is a shadow master in the campaign world that the party's probably going to have to deal with at some point in the future because they didn't deal with him beforehand. And that could be the start of a new loop because you have this new major figure, the shadow master, and maybe they have other plans or events that they want to kick off. And that's going to keep the campaign moving forward. I like to think about the party in the sandbox sort of like a ship out at sea. The party can choose to sail their ship wherever they'd like within the ocean, but they also are going to have to respond to the waves, the storms, and the currents of the ocean around them. Those are the things that you as the game master provide to the ecosystem, and then you just see how the party reacts to it. And you do that with the 4 pillars that we've discussed in this video. So as a game master, you can use these 4 pillars to drive action in your sandbox game, really into perpetuity if you want, or for as long as you want to run that specific campaign. Events provide the what, factions are your who, timers serve as the when, and secrets are the why. Really mastering these four elements kind of turns your passive scenery into a living world that responds to the player's presence and absence equally. This is really the heart of great sandbox game mastering. I'd love to hear in the comments, how do you choose to run your sandbox games? Do you use something similar to the four pillars or something totally different? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Consider checking out Enchanted Nimbus, my monthly newsletter. Thanks for hopping aboard the Earthmote. I'll see you in the next one.